We started our translation into Zoom. Also, I do the recording on my computer. Okay, so guys, today's lecture will be by Massimiliano Giberti. His lecture will be about what's hybrid. And you will know a lot of interesting things during this lecture today. But before, let me please make a short introduction about Massimiliano. So he is a partner architect of Bureau Self Architettura, professor of architectural design at the University of Genova, and guest professor at VAW University in Beijing. He obtained his master and doctorate titles from the Università di Genova, Italy, and concluded his PhD in the year 2003. Over the years, he has participated and won various architecture competitions. Since 2014, he is the editor of the web magazine eldecor.it. Massimiliano Giberti coordinated several research projects at an international level, taking the issue of redevelopment of the urban systems in Tripoli, Libya, Rio de Janeiro, and Beirut. Matamoros,
Mexico.
Yes, as well as the large-scale planning in China and Russia, and now is participating in a project of relevant national interest in Italy. So please welcome Massimiliano Giberti. Massimiliano, please, you can start.
Thank you so much, Gregory. Thank you for your invitation. And hello, everybody. I hope my lecture will be as interesting as the other two you have already hosted in your workshop. Since I have seen the two previous lectures, I little bit shifted the topics because I've seen that you have already talked about markets. I mean, public spaces, architecture, etc., etc. So today I would like to, let's say, blow up a little bit the vision, talking about some topics that for me, for my research, and also for my professional expertise are crucial, that are related to how we, let's say, how we create a sort of connection and relationship with the public space and between our own bodies and the bodies of other people that are staying, that are sharing the same public space or the same space as well. So I would like to let's say to fix some points, some items, let's say, and I hope that this would be useful and I hope also helpful for your project development, because I think that sometimes talking about let's say how to say too much specific items and too much specific topics, too much related to the project you are doing, maybe sometimes you're gonna lose the general vision, and maybe sometimes you have to zoom out a little bit the vision and try to reshape your approach according to other topics you are not thinking about, maybe because you are too much involved in your work. So I hope this will be helpful. If not, please interrupt me, stop me, and say, okay, we are not interested in what you are talking about, and I immediately stop, and you go back to your work. Anyway, can you see my screen? I hope so. Okay, is it visible? Yes. Okay, I hope I begin because I arranged the presentation on this application. I don't know if I put full screen. No. Can you see the screen now? No. Yes or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Can you see the fish? Okay, so because I'm not sure that it's gonna working with the full screen mode. So if you don't, as soon as I switch the image, I'm gonna ask you, and maybe you just confirm that you see the switch. Okay. Anyway, the title is what's hybrid? The improper occupation of public space as a design strategy. We have been always interested, me and my partner Giacomo Del Bene, that we are co-founder of this architectural agency whose name is Self Architecture. We've been always interested in hybrid things. I mean, what is too much clear, too much defined for us is not so is not so interested. We prefer to work in between, when things are not so clear, and also when a lot of things happens in the same place in the same time. So this word hybrid has been always present in our research and in our work since when we were together in the studying at the university. So, and another stuff crucial for our research is this idea of occupying in an improper way the public space, because normally and usually when you think to a public space, you think to a square, a road, and you know that there are rules that are leading, the use of those spaces. When you stay, I mean, when you walk through a road, you need to respect some codes, some rules, and even if they are not written, but you know that you have to walk following a straight line. You just to be careful when you have to stop. You cannot sit in the middle of a road because there's a strong risk of some accident, etc., etc. But sometimes, if you use in an improper way a public space, something extraordinary could happen. And we start from this, let's say, formal contradiction between public space and codes that are governing those public space, because normally you associate to the word public space something that is free, open to everybody, but there are a lot of rules and codes governing the use of a public space, and sometimes when you break these rules, sometimes something extraordinary happens. So starting from this contradiction, we decided to explore the urban environment and the city, but not also the city, in order to understand what happened when not only a city user breaks the rules, but also an architect. What happens if us as architects decide to design something, for example, a public space that is open to be used in an improper way? So starting from a design strategy, we accept that our project could be misunderstood or used in an improper way. And for us, this is very interesting, because normally, an architect have as a goal to create rules. And sometimes when you break those rules, the architect is not so happy. Okay, my architecture, my project failed because people is using this project in an improper way. In contrast with my original idea. For us, it's completely the contrary. We love when people misunderstand the logic of a project, and when they start using this project in a different way. Okay, I switch to another slide. You see the following. You still see the fish. Sorry, Grigory. I switched to another slide. Can you see? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So just to summarize briefly what I was trying to explain, this is for me a sort of iconic reference. It is a performance from Bruno Munari. Bruno Munari was one of the greatest Italian designer ever, I think. I don't know if you know this guy. In 1944, he acted this performance. The title of the performance is the let's say research of the comfortness on a discomfort chair, and the idea is quite simple. There's a person that is trying to read a newspaper sitting on a chair. But suddenly he understands that this chair is uncomfortable, and he tries to change the position of his body on the chair. But this is not enough, and so he starts to move the chair, rotate it, and use the chair in an improper way. And at the end, you see in the last picture on the bottom right corner, he fall asleep because finally he have found the right position. This performance for me is very interesting because it is the demonstration that a designer, because he was a designer, always research for something that is outside the codes or the rules that were thought for a certain design object. The chair has clear rules. You need to sit on a surface. You need to put your arms in a certain way, etc., etc., and you have to stay right and so on. But when you start to change those rules, you discover something that is completely far from the departing idea of the designer, and this is creative for us. And also for Bruno Munari, his idea was that when you start scratching the original project and you redraw something new just using your own body, you start a new design experience. I would like to let's say to highlight this point, because for me it's crucial that you understand that every time you start a project you need to change the rules. And as not only as a designer, but first of all as a city user, as an architectural space user. And when you start changing the rules, you start acting as a designer, even if you are not using your computer, your pencil, etc., to draw something. But you act as a designer in the moment when you start, let's say, thinking different. And for me, this performance of Bruno Munari is the departing point for all of my design experience and for all of my research experience. Okay, the first topic is public and private. Every time you start thinking to a public space, you need to think to what kind of characteristic has to have this kind of space. But also, when you stay in a public space, you act as an actor. I mean, you know that you are seen by other people, you interact with other people, and so you change you change your behavior, and you start behaving as a public character. Otherwise, when you are on your own, especially when you stay home, you act exactly as you are. You don't have to. You don't have to pretend to be someone else. This is the base of this incredible movie by Alfred Hitchcock. I think everybody have seen this movie. The title is the Rear Window. You know the story. The story is that photographer that is forced to stay home because he had some broken leg, something like that, and he starts say spying the other people living in the same quarter, and he discovers that the public life of these people is completely different from the private one. This idea of being yourself when you stay home, but at the same time to let's say to spread out your life, your private life, is quite interesting. And I mean, it's a long time that not only designer but also artists, illustrators, etc., are working on this topic. But this goes to this leads us to a topic question. I mean, when we are let's say behaving as private individuals, and when we are behaving as public people. The idea of being in a private space at the same time sharing our life with other people is absolutely contemporary. Everybody is using his own laptop or his own mobile phone to share his private life worldwide, but at the same time we are very respectful of privacy. Let's only think about all the, I mean, how many times in a day you have to click on the privacy codes when you enter a website, or when you sign some documents because you are, I mean, I don't know, going somewhere in some public space. So private and public is one of the most contemporary contradiction that we are living today. And also public and privacy is one of the main topics we have to deal with when we start designing something. I don't know if you know this book by Georges Perec. The title is La vie mode d'emploi. Is it a French author? And the idea of this book is describing the life of a condominium, of an apartment building in Paris, where people is sharing his life, making it public, but at the same time everybody is separated by walls and floors from the others. So the public can see what happens in the very private space of each one, but at the same time that they do not know anything about their neighborhoods. So it's quite strange because it's happening already now. We know almost everything of people that we never, that we will never meet in our life, but maybe we do not know what's happening to the guys living in the apartment next to our. So this condition of being so closer and so distant at the same time from people that are physically close to us is for me one of the most extraordinary contradiction of our contemporary society, and it is one of the, I think, one of the main topic we have to deal with when we start designing a public space. I really love this guy. This guy is Chris Ware. It is a comic book illustrator, one of the greatest in the contemporary scenario, and he worked on this incredible work that is called Building Stories. It is a story of a small building, described it in a very different way. I mean, if you don't know this guy, please search for it and buy this work, because it is incredible. And the idea is telling the story of a building through the private stories of his inhabitants. And this idea of representing the house in this way is very similar to what we have seen before. And once again, what's crucial is that a public space is not simply something public, but a lot of time it is a singular private space added to another singular private space, added to another singular private space a lot of time. So for me, in the contemporary society, public is simply an addition of infinite private spaces, and a collective history is simply an addition of singular stories. And that's the idea of Chris Ware. This was the idea of Alfred Hitchcock. And as a designer, our responsibility is to be always aware that when we design a public space, we are most of the time we are designing small private spaces that are close to other small private spaces, because the contemporaneity is that one. In 2008, the HBO, which is American broadcast network, started with this project, which was really interesting. It was called the VAW project, and it was a web fiction. And the idea was that one could spy the life of someone else through the computer, just looking as just looking through the walls of an house. This kind of representation is very interesting. I really loved it. And the idea was that one could follow this fiction day by day, just clicking on his computer and trying to let's say influence the developing of the story. I mean, with the comments of the participants, the actors would change the developing of the novel. This project failed because in 2008 there was let's say the explosion of the social media, especially of Facebook, and this fiction failed because it was much more interesting to spy the real life of people through Facebook than spying let's say a fake fiction life made by actors. This is just to say that it was quite interesting also. This is an artistic experience by Gordon Matta Clark in 1975. He did a lot of conical piercing in building, and this is exactly what I was trying to talk about. You stay in your house, but suddenly a big hall opens up in your perimetral wall, and suddenly you are completely exposed to the public vision. Those pictures as force, strength that for me is very, very inspiring. Okay, and in 1997 as well, IMPROPER, they designed this house that is named two-family house, and the idea was exactly this one: two families living not one close to the other, but literally one inside the living space of the other. The family black and the family white, as you can see from the right picture, were sharing the same physical space, but divided by a wall, a shaped wall, and they couldn't see what the other family was doing inside the house, but their life was completely exposed to the public vision, because the main wall, the main facade of the house was completely glazed. So from the road, everybody could see what was happening within the house, but the two families couldn't. It is exactly what is happening today, and I think that is exactly an interesting contradiction between public and private I was talking about. Another topic that for me is quite interesting is that of, as I was saying in the beginning, is that of forcing a little bit the rules that are how to say, it was leading our way of approaching the public space. This is a set of pictures taken by Herman Erzberger, which is a Dutch architect and professor. For me, another crucial inspiration for my research and for my work. In the 70s, he started a series of a set of lectures at the university, and he started teaching his students that what is interesting is when you find someone who is, let's say, breaking the rules. And they started with this picture that's quite interesting, because you see these two ladies that are having a dinner between two cars, and the other people in the back of the picture that are doing the same, but in a most appropriated placement. But at the end, the conclusion is the same. Everybody is sitting on a road, and the distance between the two ladies and the other people sitting in the door of the restaurant is less than 1 meter. But everybody is, I mean, the feeling that you have when you look to this picture is that the two ladies are in a wrong place and the other guys are in the right place. And my question is, what's the difference? Why the two ladies are in the wrong place and why the other customer are in the right place? And the answer is because of the cars. Because the two ladies are between two cars. Okay, I would reply, let's guess what and if are the two cars that are staying in the wrong place and the two ladies are in the right place. What's happened? I mean, we normally when we see this picture, we say, okay, the two ladies are in the wrong place. But nobody's thinking about that it is not, I mean, it is not normal that two cars are staying and occupying a public road. Why these two cars should be there? And normally when I ask this to my students, nobody is able to reply, because you never think about this, because for us it is completely normal that that a lane of infinite lane of cars is let's say standing still and occupying public place along a road. And This is another picture from this set from Emmeretsberger. You see this old couple having lunch, sitting in this let's say bus, how you call it, this storage for bags. Okay, once again, what's wrong? This place was thought by the designer just to store bags, okay? But for chance, the height of let's say the back side of the bottom side of the bus is exactly the height of a chair. So these two persons are totally comfortable sitting there. And at the same time, let's say there's I mean the size of this place is perfectly fitting with their bodies, and also they are repaired from sun or from rain by the door of the storage that is open. So incredibly, this object is transformed into a let's say small dining room. Why? Because these two people are doing something there, something that was unexpected, but it is completely natural, because the dimension, the size, and the morphology of this place is fitting with their goals, with their expectations. Aldo Rossi, one of the greatest Italian architects of the last century, in his best book, that was L'Architettura della Città, the architecture of the city, in the very beginning of the book, shows these two pictures. We are in Arles, that is a city in French, a Roman city founded by the Romans. And in these two pictures, the representation is the same building, the amphitheater of Arles. On the top picture, it's a picture from the 15th century, and the bottom one is a contemporary picture. And as you see, the amphitheater in the 15th century was a sort of walled city. So inside the amphitheater, inside the arena, there were houses, so people used to live there, and the walls of the arena were the walls of the medieval city. And now, again, as in the beginnings, the center of the arena is empty, and the walls are dividing what is empty to what is full. I mean, the city itself. And they say that it is quite interesting, because when you talk about a public space, he talked about monument as the maximum the maximum expression of a public space. What makes a public space a real public space in the history is the capacity of adapting to different uses during his life. And with this example, he was explaining that as much as you, let's say, use violence in a certain way with this kind of building, the most you are celebrating is monumentality. Actually, when we talk about a monument, first time we say respect, maintaining as it is, do not touch it, etc., etc. But during the history, the history is teaching us that the most you change, the you manipulate, the most you abuse some building or some space, and the more it become a public space. Some examples from Italy. This is Piazza del Campo di Siena. You know, 2 times a year there's an incredible event here, a horses ride. On the left side, let's say the empty square, and on the right side you see the square during the event, and the people is let's say filling completely the center of the square, and the perimeter is quite empty. On the other side, on the other hand, when there is no event in a normal day, in the daily use, it is completely the opposite. I mean, people is walking and using the boundaries of the square, and the center is quite empty. Once again, this is Piazza San Pietro in Rome. Those pictures were taken during the Pope funerals, and you can see that the presence of people creating these strange geometries is colliding extremely with the shape of the colonnade. And once again, the shape of the architecture and the shape of people are conflicting. And who wins, we do not know. I mean, this is just an open question. Once again, here we are around the black stone in La Mecca. On the left side, the building with the black stone in the middle, without people, and on the right side you see all the people sitting all around the black stone, and creating these circular shapes all around the stone, and completely erasing the shape of the architecture. You do not see the architecture here. You just see people making these circles. And once again, the presence of thousands and thousands of bodies is completely destroying the architectural shape of this public space. Just the last example here is Venice Lagoon. In the latest 80s, there was an extraordinary concert by Pink Floyd here in the lagoon, and the stage of the concert was in the middle of the lagoon, in the middle of the Giudecca Canal, and the water became solid in a certain way, because all the I mean, a lot of people with small boats filled the empty space between the Piazza San Marco and the stage, and it was extraordinary because the liquid surface became in a certain way solid for a night. And once again, when you use in an improper way the public space, something incredible and extraordinary happens. So some examples just to demonstrate that my suggestions are not only theoretical. This is a super interesting map of Paris made by Guy Debord. in the latest 50s. He used to represent the city of Paris, only selecting some part of the city where he remembered that he did something crucial for his life. So he remembers only places where something happened to his life. And for the rest, there are only arrows, red arrows connecting places. So the city shape is no more interesting, relevant. What is relevant is what I did and what I remember I did in certain places of the city. This is another representation of the city by Dutch architect Constant. This utopistic city, New Babylon, and once again the city is a sort of interconnection of spaces. Here, another extraordinary picture, a map of city made by other maps collage. So it took some parts of touristic maps of other cities, and he just linked together using a tape to create this new shape for a city. I mean, the idea that it's possible to imagine a sort of new layer for the city when you can do whatever you want, and you just do not touch the original city, but you just put something new, is old. This is one of the sketches from Constant. His idea was to create this sort of floating city above the existing territory. And his manifesto was affirming that, I mean, it was not necessary to touch the existing, because it was not interested in the existing, but it was possible to add something new. So the city was a floating city, was continuous, was made by, let's say, different kind of objects, different kind of shapes, and especially the inhabitants of this city was a sort of contemporary nomads. This idea of nomadic life within the city is absolutely contemporary. Today, I mean, everybody is living as a sort of urban nomad, and I think that the father of this idea was exactly Constant. Imagine this kind of infinite and constantly in move city. Jana Friedman was another interesting, let's say, another interesting designer who imagined this idea of creating a new layer for the city, imagining something that was completely flexible, completely open, and once again suspended above the existing territory. Just some examples, but I think everybody who studied architecture knows very well those kind of examples. This is a wonderful picture. It is just a sketch made on a picture of Place de la Bastille à Paris. But also in Italy, there were some interesting group working of this utopistic vision. This is the non-stop city of Archizoom, the idea of an infinite city, completely flexible, where the citizen could use any place in any way, just with simple tools that everybody could use in order to customize their let's say, private space. The idea here is that there is no difference between private and public. Every place is identical to another one, and the more you move, the more you stay away from your original site, the more you find the same place. So you can move everywhere, north, south, east, west, it doesn't matter, but you can find the same services, the same tools, so you can live as a contemporary nomad. You don't need to carry on anything, because any furniture, any tool, etc., because you will find the minimum everywhere. Again, Super Studio, another fantastic Italian agency. This is the Monumento Continuo, and once again, the idea that through architecture it is possible to, let's say, colonize and occupy public spaces. All of these radical groups, they really loved to, let's say, to use violence to iconic places. This is Piazza Navona in Roma. So the idea was that it was much more interesting to destroy the symbolic, the symbolism of some places rather than creating something completely new from a scratch. This is the super feature of Super Studio. Once again, you see those guys that are contemporary nomads, and they can live on this neutral surface without any specific characteristic, but just touching those white squares, they could find all the necessity that they need to live together. Okay, briefly, this guy is Peter Cook, one of the founder of Archigram. Also, Archigram, they was really attracted to this idea of, let's say, matching public and private, and also working with events without touching the existing city. This is Eastern City, one of the most interesting projects. The Eastern City was a floating city, arriving in a not necessarily defined place, and from the top of the city with some very say high-tech tools. They will transform the existing city into something different. The slide number one is a sleeping town, you see on the top left corner, and then the floating city arrives. They create an event. Event is crucial because when you have the event, when people is doing something, always there is a sort of transformation, highest intensity, infiltration, and then the network takes over, and there's no more need for this Eastern City. This is a strategy that is actually is working very well when you have to reactivate a place, when you have to let's say to reactivate not only a place but a building, a piece of town, through events, and then you leave something as a sort of virus that you leave in the city, and then this virus start working and transform in a positive way the city itself. One of the other projects of Archigram, you know, is plugin city. This idea of self-constructing city, so you don't need no more architects, no more construction companies. But the most interesting is this one. It is the computer city. The idea is that networking would be the only strategy necessary to create a city. So you don't need no more streets, you don't need no more infrastructure, you don't need no more buildings, you just need networking. And computer city, check the date, is 1964. So 60 years ago, they understood that the future of the city would be networking. So you don't need no more physical space, but just connections. Okay, they started from 1978. They arrived to 1985. We took 10 years more, but at the end, the solution is that one. I skip because it's a long lecture, and 1 hour is almost ended. Okay, design strategies. How we can manage all this by doing real architecture, concrete architecture. This is a sketch very interesting by Claude Parent and Paul Virilio. The first is an architect, the second one is a philosopher. In 1963, they founded a magazine called Architecture Principe. Their idea was that vertical and horizontal surfaces were something old to skip, and the future was a slope. So they started with these slope surfaces, and they developed an idea of environment which was completely usable. They said, okay, when you have vertical and horizontal, vertical wall, you cannot use it. You use vertical wall only to separate. And the separation is the contrary of architecture, because architecture is organization, sharing, etc., not separation. So we need to erase completely the presence of vertical walls, and we can substitute vertical walls with slopes, with inclinated walls. Sorry. And when you have inclinated, when you have slopes, you can work everywhere. You can stay everywhere. And they started developing those models that are really interesting. Not only of buildings, but also of cities made by inclinated surfaces. Rem Koolhaas, OMA office, in 1992, they presented a proposal for the National Library of Jussieu, University Library of Jussieu at Paris. And this library was exactly the consequence of the principle of from Claude Parent and Paul Virilio. So inclinated surfaces. This is one of the, I think, the milestones for contemporary architecture, because for the very first time they demonstrated that if you remove vertical walls and you work only with inclinated floors, you can have let's say the infinite building. You can move everywhere. There's no separation, and you can use every surface however you want. The same happened in the project for the Parc de la Villette at Paris. The competition was the winner of the competition was Bernard Choumi, with his incredible project. Everybody knows it, but also OMA was present in this competition. They didn't win, but the project was really interesting. and they proposed to work with a sort of overlapping of different layers. Every layer was representing a sort of different aspect of the landscape they were designing, and the result of the project was simply the overlapping of all the layers, without any I mean any possibility of let's say hierarchy between elements. Every element was present at the same time. And this idea for me is very interesting because you don't have to choose. I mean, it's not the architect that has to choose between one system or another one. It is the user that can follow one of the layers and adopt the landscape, the place to his needs. This is another project more than 20 years after. Once again in Paris, the redevelopment of the area of Les Halles, once again a competition, and they presented this project, but once again OMA presented this project that is an evolution of the previous one for the Parc de la Villette. The overlapping of the layers was a little bit transformed into the third dimension. So they started rising up some layers and changing the topography of the land by as I said, raising up some elements. And once again, this idea of this let's say operative ground, this idea of being able of overlapping different activities in different times in the same piece of land, but also rising up some layer and creating these iconic elements that are in a certain way the symbolic emerging of some activity, some function that is rising up from the bottom. Okay, 1 hour is over. I have a lot of slides remaining, but I think I can stop here because I don't want to steal too much time to your work. So it's up to you. If you want, I can finish, but otherwise I think could be enough. Let me know how to manage the time.
Massimiliano, you know, we just talked with the guys, and I think we have a little bit more time. So if you have some slides to show.
Yes, in 5 minutes I will finish, because I would like to move from public space to building. To some public. Okay, very, very, very quickly, because I think everybody knows those projects. But anyway, this woman is John Littlewood. She was a theater director, and in the 60s she asked to this guy that is Cedric Price to start investigating the possibility of creating a new generation of theater or place for expressing arts, and together they developed this project, which is one of the most iconic projects of the latest decades, which is the Fun Palace. I mean, the Fun Palace is not a theater; it is a machine, and it is a machine thought for doing everything you want, more or less. It is a sort of an extension of the technical part of the theaters that is transformed into a living space. The Fun Palace is a system, is a design strategy. It is something that, I mean, it could be represented with diagrams like this one, but it is also something that has no language. I mean, nobody can, I mean, there is never, I mean, there's no picture representing the facade of the building, the architecture of the building. It is always representing as a sort of diagram, a machine, something like that. I really love this project because it is the demonstration that architecture is not only, let's say, style, language, shaping, etc., but is mostly a design strategy, a process, and this process leads people to use a space as they want. It is a machine that you can transform in a flexible way to do almost everything, from theater representation to cinema to fair, exhibition, etc., etc. So it is a Fun Palace. This is an extraordinary section where you can see that everything is moving, everything is changing, but you never see, I mean, you never see a facade, you never see, some architectural elements. All the, you see these walls that are rotating, everything could be shifted, etc., etc. I mean, also the plans, you never see the same representation of the same building. Every drawing is something different. Stairs are moving, elevators are moving, etc., etc. Okay. This is a perspective, a photo montage of the perspective. You see, it's like a building site. It's like a, something, I don't know, more engineering than architects. In the same years, these two architects, one is Renzo Piano, the other one is Richard Rogers. They participate to a competition for this building, for the Centre Pompidou in Paris. I'm thinking now that I'm showing all the project in Paris. I don't know why, but anyway. This is the original picture from the documentation presenting at the competition. If you know, the built building is completely different from this one. This is much more interesting, I guess. Once again, it is the Fun Palace of Cedric Price, built in Paris. And also you can see the crowd of people in the place, in the square outside, a lot of colored and very pop objects, screens. I mean, once again, it is not architecture, it is a free space, the really free space for people, and a sort of machine, a transformer machine for different activities. This is the final results. Last project, once again, two people. One is Miuccia Prada, and the other one, everybody knows, is Rem Koolhaas. In 2007, Miuccia Prada asked Koolhaas to create, I think, one of the most flexible buildings I have ever seen. The name is the Prada Transformer. It was a building that should be used for fashion exhibition, for art exhibition, as a cinema, and for special events. And the idea of OMA was to create a building with 4 different ground floors, 4 different plans, and without elevation. I mean, the elevation where the ground floor, when the building was rotated. And so this extraordinary building is, I think, a sort of conclusion of the right conclusion for my presentation, because it represents exactly in the contemporary age what we mean for flexible building, for hybrid building. Because you can rotate it, you just move it, and it changes its goals. And okay, this is one of the, I don't know if you know this building, it's really interesting, because there's no facade, there's no elevation, it's just the plan rotating in different ways. Okay. Finish. I think, okay, 10 minutes more. Okay, my goal was just to, let's say, to put some ideas on the table without necessarily connecting them together, but just open some question, because I think that every time you start designing a public space or redesigning a public space, you need to think exactly that people that would use this space do not know anything about architecture. They are not interested in architecture at all. They are just interested in doing something together with other people, have fun, stay well, make relationship with other guys, etc., etc. And the more they forget that they are inside an architecture, the more they forget that there is a work of a designer inside, the most you reach your goals. Finito.
Grazie mille. Massimiliano, let me then ask some questions. Ask for questions to our auditorium. Ребята, есть какие-то вопросы?
I mean, they are not forced. Man. They are not forced.
Okay, so then let me just check our online chat and the YouTube chat, because probably we have some questions there. Okay. Then in this case, I would like to ask you a few questions, if you please.
Mm-hmm.
First one would be, every one of us, we are curious about, can you demonstrate a project probably done by you or the studio that somehow would illustrate how this idea, not only in this sequence of amazing ideological projects, was shown, but also probably in your practice. Do you have a project like that to show?
Yes, let me check. Oh, okay, we did. Sorry, I need some time because. Let me check. Sorry. No, second.
Meanwhile, I'm able to gain some more and more questions. And we have some.
Okay. Okay, this was a competition for housing a building in Milan. The request was for, let's say, let's say, new way of new concept for social dwellings, etc., etc. So our idea, we started from that comics book by Chris Ware I've shown before. And the idea was that every apartment should have a sort of shared space. So in the total square meters of the apartment, everybody should lose some part and share with the neighbor. And the result is this kind of building, where not only on the top of the building but also in the middle, between apartments, you have some strange spaces, an half football field, a swimming pool, some playgrounds for children. So sometimes you miss an apartment and you find some semi-public, half public space, half private, etc., etc. But also within each apartment, there was some space that was dedicated for sharing, not only inside the apartment but also in between the facade and the interior of the apartment. So the idea was that I mean, there's an incredible project by Lacatone Vassal that was refitting of an apartment building in France. They just put some new structure on the facade, creating this kind of solution. So this is not a terrace. This is a part of the apartment that is in between public and private. And so for each one of those apartments, we just inserted this structure, and this is more or less. I try to zoom in a little bit. Okay, this was more or less the result. I think that this project that was very conceptual. Obviously, we lost the competition, and but we were aware of this. We were more than sure that nobody would understand this kind of proposal. But anyway, we really love this project because this kind of new facade of the building was not only an extension of the private space, but was only a sort of vertical public space. And for sure, at the end, on the top of the building, or in some part, you could find those kind of spaces that were public and private at the same time. This is just one of examples. I would like, if I have 2 minutes, I would like to show you also another project if I found it.
What is the destiny for this project? Will it be implemented, or it was just a competition?
It was a competition. We lost. So another one won the competition. So we lost. And the project that won the competition was a very stupid project, without any any kind of idea inside. Let me check. Sorry, let me check the website because no, sì, grazie. Okay, I'm gonna show you through the website because I cannot find on the server now. This was another competition. Once again, around Milan. This was for kindergarten, school for children, and you know, the renewal, requalification of a part of this place. The program was to insert a market, a weekly market. You know, once a week there's a a market, a weekly market, and some other services. And once again, our idea was to to draw this kind of strange picture on the ground, completely connected with the kindergarten, with the strange section, because all you see, all this white circle, etc., are 3 meters above the ground. So there's a sort of let's say walkway and bicycle lane floating over the garden, and connected with some function. And also the school for children was thought as a sort of system of islands. One was the gym, another one is a small theater, other services, the small restaurant, and the rooms and the classrooms, but all connected by this let's say suspended lane, etc. And the same you can find in a section here. And the same was for the other temporary functions. So this suspended lane became the cover for the trucks for the market, or some cover for places to stay, for playgrounds, etc. So the double. This is a kind of diagram showing the idea of connection of part within the city. Yeah, this is a kind of example how to manage, the temporary market here, the sports arena here, and children playground at the same time. So once again, in the same place, in different times, you can do different kind of activities, and the architecture remains as a sort of infrastructure that you can use according to your needs. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
I think so. Yes, pretty much. Meanwhile, we gained some other questions. Can you see the chat?
Yes.
I'm trying to translate them from Russian to English meanwhile, so that they have some certain of a sequence.
Okay. No, the first one is too much difficult. What do you mean?
Just a sec.
No, the first sentence, I really do not understand the question.
You mean should modern architecture?
Yes. I mean, what do you mean?
Let's ask. I think I can transformulate the question.
Okay, maybe I understood. I mean, okay. Let me try to reply, and then you check if it is proper or not. We cannot escape from shaping the space. It is impossible. So we have to deal with forms, with shapes, with language, with images, with colors, etc., because we are architects. I mean, there's no possibility of a space without shaping a space. And that's all. But anyway, you can let's say you can hide your programs within a shape. You can hide your ideas and this possibility of working in transforming the space within a well-shaped and an iconic architecture. The problem is that today, my concern is that today the mainstream architects are working only on images and forgetting everything else. And on the other side, there are new generation of architects that are working only on programs, forgetting completely the language. So we need to balance between the two, because it is not, I mean, if you want to be a web, let's say a Instagram star, you can just make diagrams and axonometric views, and everybody will follow you and click on like icon. But otherwise, if you want to be an architect, you have to build something. And when you build something, you also need to deal with with aesthetics. It is not easy, but there's a need for a balance between the two. And also, people need to read something. I mean, the space should be clear. But to be clear doesn't mean to force people doing only one thing, act only in a one way. To be clear means, okay, it is clear, you can use it. You know, it is like, you know, the Swiss knife. No, you have a lot of tools, you know, very well that you can use whatever you want. The knife, and you just use it as a knife, but you can also do something else. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that okay, it is not so easy to answer this kind of question. The second one, the occupational space.
Can I read it loud so that
yes, sorry, yes, please.
So the occupation of space desacralizes the architect's demiurge, but this thesis is constant with an open work of art. On the other hand, this thesis discredits architecture as a policy. What do you think about this?
Yes, please. Yes, please. It would be great if you know, if architecture and policy completely separated, because for me architecture is opportunity. I mean, when you act as an architect, you create opportunities, and creating opportunities is always something that I mean, it's an open process, and you leave to the users the final word. I don't believe in architecture as a policy. Yes, I mean, when you make architecture, you act. Yes, I mean, you say something, you are affirming something, so it is impossible to escape from this. But anyway, I really don't. I mean, it's out of my way of thinking architecture. You know, this. I think that, you know, there is someone who need to decide what should be done, and then there is the architect that is suggesting how to make it. I really don't like when the architect is someone who is substituting other competencies, for me it is a loss of you know, of something. I don't know if, I mean, I try to be more than clear. I mean, we need people taking decision. We need people reacting. We need people opposing. We need people using the space, and then we need architects. If the architect starts, you know, practicing everything, it is the end. Because I mean, it is impossible. We need, you know, a sort of dialectic, let's say, relation with other kind of competencies, etc., etc. Because otherwise we would be always right, and I don't like it. And also, I don't think that architects are always right. I prefer when architects make mistakes, because from mistakes, you know, you find always something interesting. So it's complicated. But I think that it is not bad when architecture is separated from. So architecture is not policy to me. Architecture is a way of making something. You can make it good, you can make it bad, you can make it one way, you can make it multiple way. But I think that's our task. Yes, then you can imagine something, but without some decision maker, you know, the story is full of architects that decided for you know, that pretended to be governors or secretary. It's full, and the results.
May I comment a little bit this?
Yes, please.
Also, your answer on the previous question. I recall that in 2018, probably during the Salone del Mobile in Milano, there was a separate program in Planetarium by Michele De Lucchi. And the topic was silence in architecture. So the architecture. And I remember myself, my professor, Cristina Paolini, our previous guest lecturer, and some friends of mine, we were trying to get inside, but there was so many people, so we couldn't. And we decided to grab some beers and just go to the park where the planetarium is. Suddenly we bumped into some Korean architects who was just sitting there in the bench, drinking some beer. And a friend of mine, an Italian guy, he asked, look guys, sorry, we don't know you, but let's talk about things that are happening there in planetarium, but without them. So when he asked the question, what do you think the silence in architecture is? So one Korean or Japanese guy, sorry, I don't remember, he was saying that, you know, all we are standing here drinking beer is an architecture already.
Yes.
And I think this is a silence of architecture, and this is the starting point for architecture. And that was a very interesting thing.
I agree with that guy. Yes, no, I always start. I mean, the first lecture to my student at the first year, I mean, the first day at the university, I say, okay, guys, before becoming architects, you need to understand how to be citizens. And because as a citizen, as city users, every day you act as architects. I mean, you are designing something, and walking, running, staying, drinking a beer, etc., etc. So this is always the beginning. And the first exercise I suggest to the students is make a project without using architectural tools. I mean, just use your body, move, take pictures, and I mean, it's some years ago, one of my favorite exercise was making a short clip with the telephone and the topic was doing something dangerous in the city. I mean, do something dangerous. And it's quite interesting because the most they used to do something that was against the common codes of living a public space. I mean, just sitting, let's say, sitting in the middle of a road, something like that. That's strange because, I mean, what's dangerous? What's really dangerous in a city? And thinking about danger, you know, when you think about danger, you start thinking about how a designer designed that space, no? Following what kind of codes, what kind of rules, etc., and expecting what from you as a user, because when we design something, we expect from others to act in a certain way. I think that's the most interesting point of our job, because even if you do not want, you start thinking to people moving inside your buildings, making things. So you have to move this way. You have to understand that the light comes from this side, etc., and you will react in this way. But normally, it doesn't work. But normally, all the thoughts that you have in the origin, I mean, they fail. That's the I mean, that's the point.
Okay.
Anyway.
Also, we have another question. How much time do we have? Do we have like 10 or 15 more minutes, or
until 5:30 Italian time? For me is okay, but I mean, we can stop before. Not
okay, right. So the next question, if you see, what do you think about how applicable this? By this, I think this is the team hybrid. So what do you think about how applicable this term hybrid is when adapting historic buildings? Where is a point of there is a point of view that this is necessary or desirable to preserve the historical function? So how this topic of hybrid is applicable to historical buildings?
As I said, maybe too much. I just you know, skip quickly. But as Aldo Rossi said, and I completely agree with him. You know, the real meaning for a monument itself is being able to accept, absorb, and adapt different functions during its life. So the more you abuse of an historical building, and the more this building is able to not to react, but to adapt and to respond more than react to those kind of action, the more it is a monument, and its historical value is let's say yes, it is safe. For sure. I mean, there is a building. There are buildings that are really different. But just think about the Romans building. Just think about the Colosseum in Rome, or other buildings during their life. They have been used as really as the Colosseum was a factory in the 18th century. A factory. So I don't see this kind of problem really with historical buildings. I mean, it is quite easier for buildings that have been built before the 20th century, because modern architecture is too much rigid. Functionalism has a little bit ruined, has a little bit destroyed this possibility of let's say, transforming building, because the building of the 20th century, a lot of buildings from the 20th century, I mean, you cannot think to an example, let's say Ville-Savoie. Ville-Savoie actually is the museum of Ville-Savoie. No, the same for other modern houses or modern buildings. It is quite difficult to transform modern buildings. Oldest one are easier because they have been thought as, you know, much more flexible one, and it's quite easier to respect also the historical value. So I don't see huge problems in this, and especially for your building, because it is an extraordinary building, absolutely open to be used and transformed, etc. internally. Maybe you don't need to do too much externally because it's enough iconic, enough strong, beautiful. Yes, just to, let's say, do some, you know, some refitting to the roof, some part, etc., etc. But for the rest, it's a wonderful building. So inside, it is perfect to be used in an infinite kind of ways. So it is not a problem. It is not a problem. Once again, for me, it is not a problem of language, of style, etc., etc. It's just a matter of capacity of use it. So historical doesn't mean a thing. You can say, okay, it is historical, but it is usable or not. It is flexible or not. It is rigid or not. That's the proper answer. The proper question. Sorry. Historical.
An interesting point of view, I have to say. Okay.
And I am Italian.
Yes.
So it's quite strange from an Italian architect to hear something like that. But anyway.
Okay. So the next one, do you believe that the architecture that's functioning not in a way that it's supposed to be functioning is a failed architecture?
It depends.
I think this
it depends. It depends. It depends. Generally not. But there's an interesting story by Giancarlo De Carlo. Giancarlo De Carlo was one of the Italian master of the, you know, postmodern. Yes, after yes, from the Team 10. I mean, post-functionalist architecture in Italy. An incredible architect and intellectual. He made this project in Terni, Quartiere Matteotti, which for me is one of the strongest residential project ever. But anyway, and he said, okay, I designed this kind of let's say flexible space outside the houses, a sort of small terraces with stairwells. And the idea was that through those stairwells, people could reach the garden. There was a garden. And after he built these houses, and this it was social housing, he noticed that he went there, and he noticed that people used to stay seated on the steps of these open air stairs. So they start using those stairs not as stairs, but as a sort of let's say open air living room to speak with others, guys, etc., etc., etc. And he said, okay, I failed because it is completely different from my original idea, but it's better because they are staying together using the stair as a common space to stay together. Another history, very, very, very brief. Another architect, Italian architect, was Mario Ridolfi. They worked for social housing in the 50s after the war, and they built this sort of post-rural houses in the south of Italy. And the idea was that everybody living there was people originally living in the countryside. So they used to have animals, etc., all around. And so the idea for those houses was to make a sort of small, a part of the house was a sort of, let's say, a place for animals, you know, for pigs, for cows, for donkeys, etc., to stay in close to the house, because they wanted to maintain this, say, cultural heritage of those people that originally were from the countryside. Okay, finally, the result was that everybody transformed this place for animals for the covered car parking for their own private cars. So this very romantic idea of putting, you know, this place for animals for each house was completely, you know, destroyed by the use made by those people. They wanted to forget their origin because they wanted to be like a contemporary citizen. So stop with animals, we want a car, and we use this for our cars. So even if sometimes this is related to my previous answer, when the architects want to be, you know, sociologists, etc., they fail. So it is better if we do our job, and that's all. So sometimes it's better, sometimes not. I don't know how to reply to this question, but normally when it's not working as supposed, but it is introducing something, you know, different but interesting, I think that it is not a failing. But it is never a failing, because I mean, even if you use your animal storage for the car, it means that you need that. So it's okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think the last question: can we claim that the cave occupied by a man is an architecture? Somehow it's related to the previous question and answer.
Yes, absolutely. But also the action of, let's say, when you do this, when with your hands, I mean, you do this, you put your hands this way, and you say to someone else, okay, stay away from me. It's architecture, because you are creating a space that was not there before. Or if you shake the hand of a friend, it's architecture. I mean, yes, absolutely. Making boundaries is architecture, and crossing boundaries is architecture. So yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Architecture is something that is there before architects, long time before architects.
And so the function of architect in this case would be like reinterpretate what is already there, or what? You mean you said the architecture is already there somewhere.
Yes.
So when we come as an architects, our main target, or our, I don't know how to say it, our destiny is to read what is already there and try to transform it in a better way or in a better use?
Sometimes yes, but more than transform it is making opportunity. Not only making opportunity, but just showing people that there are other opportunities. I think that the real target is showing that there are other opportunities. I mean, you just have to show that everything is already there. Mm-hmm. You just have to see it in the right way. And it is very complicated, because first of all, you need to understand as an architect, and that you have to show. So two steps. First, you need to understand, and then the second, you need to show. And then you need to use tools, the proper tools. Because this is important. The same tools not necessarily works the same way in different places, in different countries, in different cultures. That's clear. And I mean, for me, this is, I mean, I have had the opportunity of working in North Africa, in the Middle East, in Russia, in Latin America, and it's completely different, completely. And so, and at the same time, listening is the first action. Mm-hmm. You need to listen, and to be open to learn every time. Listen and learn, and then after listening and learning, the half part of the job is done. Absolutely.
If you please, I would add to what you have said just now. First, listen and learn, and at the same time watch, or how do you call it? Your eyes. Yes, like using your eyes and learn, because sometimes when you come to the site, to the project site, some people are rushing so much to design something like cool, nice as soon as possible. They're losing what is already there, exactly these opportunities. So if you look and you start to feel and you understand, you listen to people, and then you're right, 50% of job is done.
Yes, in Italy, the difference between the words guardare e vedere, it's look and see, exactly, more or less.
Yes.
If you just look, you don't understand. After you see, it means that you understood. And that's the difference.
Yes. Thank you very much. I see that
you're welcome.
We're out of questions, but we're fully inspired by your lecture, and thank you very much. So I'm just going to say thank you that you have found a little bit of your time to spend with us, to give a lecture and to participate in our small, tiny workshop. I really want to say that we believe that if this workshop goes well, next year, or who knows, next season, we will organize something else, like the next step.
Great.
We learn the lesson of this workshop, and we try to make it adjust a little bit maybe to the future. So thank you very much. Today with us was Massimiliano Giberti from Genova, Italy. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you, and have a nice evening.
You're welcome. I would like to see the results of the project. So I don't know.